Good morning and welcome back to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie on the Exceptional Conservative Network and SHR Media. I am your host, the business diva, Melanie Collette, and joining us this morning will be private consultant and economist, Mr. Patrick Barron. He is also a contributor to the Mises Institute, and we're going to discuss this morning 7 steps toward a more sensible foreign policy. This is an article that was submitted to the Mises Institute that is a second part to the essay we discussed with him last month, 6 Steps Toward a More Sane Economic Policy, which of course was speaking of our domestic policy. And now we're going to discuss with him a sensible foreign policy. So I'm looking forward to that conversation with Mr. Barron this morning. And also, this morning, I'm introducing a new segment called 5 Minutes of Personal Finance at the end of the show, where I will offer you personal finance tips. And today, of course, has to do with the tax deadline and some deductions that you don't want to miss, some commonly missed deductions, and what you can do if for some reason you can't find all your paperwork or you're just not quite ready to file yet. What is it? What are some things that you can do? So we're going to talk about that at the end of the show with the 5 minutes of personal finance at the end of the show. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we get into all of that, a bit of housekeeping. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you may do so at MoneyTalkMel. Also, you can like my page on Facebook at Money Talk with Melanie. That's my Facebook handle. And if you go to those two places, you'll be able to see in advance who our guests are going to be. And also, you'll be able to click on the podcast should you miss the show. The show is also on iTunes and Blueberry and Google Play and all these other places in case you missed the show. And also, of course, on Spreaker. Finally, if you'd like to send me an email, suggest a show topic, ask a question, maybe there's a question you'd like me to answer for the 5 minutes of personal finance, I'd be happy to do so. Just give me an email. Send me an email at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Finally, if you would like to be a guest on the show, join our list of, which is getting extensive, our long list of esteemed guests such as Patrick Barron, Senator of Colorado, former Senator of Colorado Ted Harvey, Colonel Rob Maness, Fox News contributor and legal and political analyst Ebony Williams, or Dr. Brooks Robinson, who is the official economist of the Exceptional Conservative Network. You can do so by going to theexceptionalconservativeshow.com and clicking on Contact Us, send us your information, and we will get back to you regarding perhaps appearing on the show. Or you can give us a call at 202-660-1329, extension 2 for Money Talk with Melanie. And you can reach me there, and we can discuss possibility of you being on the show. So, before we move on to speaking with Mr. Barron, we do have some news items to discuss. A lot went on over the weekend. My goodness. First, Turkey. In Turkey, they are almost like a dictatorship now. Turkey voted to get rid of their prime minister and give more power to their president, President Erdogan. So, but he narrowly won that vote, and I believe the vote's being contested. So that's something for you to look at, for you to keep an eye on. He's been in office for 14 years, and now, because of this vote, he'll be able to run again for another 5-year term. Just to catch you up, the Turkish military tried to overthrow him in a failed coup. So, as a result, he has been trying to get a lot more power by attacking basically anybody who is opposed to him politically, and including journalists and teachers. So that's something that we really want to keep a look at, what's going on in that government over there. So he also edited the Constitution, go figure, so that he could have more power. So, you have to be careful when you see rising dictatorships, because that does affect economies everywhere. So it's something to take a look at. In other news, North Korea celebrated an anniversary, the birthday of its founder, over the weekend, and it culminated in a failed missile launch test. So we kind of like when that happens in North Korea, you know. So, and here's the thing, now North Korea should be well aware that the Trump administration has no problem with using military force if people get, if these regimes get out of line. So we're hoping that we will see a shift in North Korea's attitude as a result. But, the thing is that Kim Jong-un is not well, as they, to put it kindly. And so, we're not really dealing with a rational person at all. Now, China's putting some pressure on North Korea on our behalf. They don't really seem to be listening, but we're still hopeful. We need to give them a little more time. But the bottom line is, Vice President Mike Pence was over in South Korea this weekend. I believe he's still there. And in his words, and I think this sums it all up, the era of strategic patience is over. We're not doing that anymore. So you need North Korea needs to get its collective act together and stop fooling around. And that's, to put it nicely. Another thing that happened yesterday, just a heinous crime. They're still looking for a gentleman, which, that term is obviously used very loosely, who just murdered a 74-year-old man in Cleveland, Ohio, in cold blood, streamed it live on Facebook. Now that is a person who is not well. They're still looking for him, but just a horrific crime, and we need to pray for the victim and his family. Just a gentleman walking home, trying to get home, and this crazy person murders him in cold blood and streams it live on Facebook. It's just a heinous, disgraceful crime, and we need to pray that he's caught soon, and pray for the comfort and for the family of the gentleman who was murdered. In other news, good news in my estimation, last week President Trump signed a law that cuts federal funding to entities that offer abortion services. Now, the whole thing that really bothers me about this whole, opponents to this measure will tell you that, abortion services is only one thing that places like Planned Parenthood does, and federal dollars don't go to abortions that are performed in the same exact facilities. That's the part that I don't quite understand from an accounting standpoint, how that works. Like, is the electricity bill being paid separately where the abortions are being performed? How are those books calculated that you're saying that it doesn't support abortion? That makes absolutely no sense at all. Just from a basic accounting perspective. And if you really want to prove yourself, separate the two services. How hard could it be? Separate them. Separate the books. Separate the entities. Call one Planned Parenthood Abortion Services and call the other one Planned Parenthood Healthcare. How hard could it be? That way we'll know which is which. But as long as you have those two entities together, I don't believe you. And so good for President Trump for signing that measure, in my estimation. Finally, over the weekend, more bad news from Syria, unfortunately. They're trying to bust people out of that war-torn area and get them to safety. And in the midst of that, a group of buses were bombed, and 100 people died. including many children. So the bad news just continues to come out of Syria. It's very sad. It's very sad, and I don't. I think everybody heard about the mother of all bombs last week being dropped in Afghanistan, and apparently nearly 100 militants were killed. So, and the bomb wiped out a network of ISIS tunnels, and apparently our generals over there in Afghanistan have been wanting to do this for a while, but of course the Obama administration would not let them, and no civilians were hurt. I mean, the whole idea was that there would be civilian casualties, and that's why they didn't want to do it. But they were able to do it without any civilians, which is just commentary on the fantasticness that is our military. So, that said, we have a commercial break coming up, and when we get back on the other side of the commercial break, we'll be speaking with Patrick Barron, who's a private consultant in banking and economist. We'll be discussing with him the 7 steps toward more sensible foreign policy. We will be back in a few moments.
Hello, this is Leslie Ann Stoffel with The Real Clear Israel. Join me every Sunday morning at 10:05 Eastern Time on the Exceptional Conservative Network, where we'll be discussing Israel with guests from Israel and around the world.
That's The Real Clear Israel, 10:05 Sunday on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Good morning.
I'm Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Okay, folks, that's not how it goes. I think I'm Shannon, and you're so, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. We are The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Live on SHR Media.
And on TECN.
Where we'll be talking about all kinds of things.
From sports and politics.
To food and entertainment.
To money.
Family.
And anything else in between.
Community, holidays, all kinds of things.
It'll be great. Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, conservative by choice. It's Reverend Ralph Chittum's The Right Guy on the Exceptional Conservative Network from 4:05 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The Right Guy on TECN.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
Okay, we are back. You were listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we have joining us this morning private banking consultant and economist Patrick Barron, and we're going to talk to him this morning about the 7 steps toward sensible foreign policy, which is the follow-up to an article that he submitted to the Mises Institute that we discussed last month, 6 steps toward a more sane economic policy. Patrick Barron is a private consultant to the banking industry, like I said. He's taught an introductory course in Australian economics for several years at the University of Iowa and has taught at the Graduate School of Banking at the University of Wisconsin for over 25 years. He's also delivered many presentations at the European Parliament. Welcome, Mr. Barron. How are you this morning?
Very good, Melanie. How are you?
I am awesome. Absolutely awesome this morning. Did you have anything to add to your bio? Anything that I may have missed, Mr. Barron, that you want to remind our audience about?
No, I think that pretty well does it. I still do some consulting, and I still give talks for anybody that's willing to listen. And but I appreciate you having me on your show again, and I've and looking forward to this follow-up talk about. This one is about foreign policy.
Exactly. And coincidentally, not so coincidentally, we are the Trump administration is redoing or working on reforming the tax code, and some of what you have in your 7 steps toward a more sensible foreign policy certainly has to do with some of the things they'll have to consider as part of the tax code. Before we move forward, can you remind the audience also what it is that the Mises Institute does? I told the audience that these articles were submitted to the Mises Institute. Can you tell them what that organization does?
Sure. I am one of the many people who contribute articles from time to time to the Institute. Its headquarters is in Auburn, Alabama, and it's dedicated to the writings and life of what I consider the greatest economist who ever lived, which was Ludwig von Mises. He was born in Vienna, Austria, in the late 19th century, and wrote many influential books. He categorized, I guess, and systematized a discipline of liberal with a small L, and in the old-fashioned term, liberal economic policies in a number of books. He was forced to flee Austria at the beginning of World War II and fortunately landed in the United States, where he finished his illustrious career. Now, the Institute is a free market institute. It has a number of programs that it puts on around the nation every year. It also has Mises University, in which college students are given scholarships to travel to Auburn to really get steeped in Austrian economics for a week during the summer, and it's a very prestigious thing to go there, and some of the graduates there have gone on to wonderful writing careers and academic careers. So I'm just very happy that the Mises Institute finds that my writings are worthy of them posting from time to time.
And they really are just a fantastic organization. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the organization is that, in addition to the more substantive articles like yourself that are really meaty and in-depth about such things as foreign policy and domestic policy, they have some very basic information for people who just want to learn about the basics of economics, which is really helpful.
Yes, that's right. In fact, they have some programs of self-learning programs that are either free or are very nominal costs, meaning under $100, that are put on by some of the great economists in the country. And so it's a way for people to learn Austrian economics, because no one's going to find their local college even has heard of Ludwig von Mises. They may have heard of Friedrich von Hayek, who won the Nobel Prize in '73, but maybe they don't even remember or heard of him. So if you want to learn what real economics is, which is called Austrian economics, mainly because as I said, the systematizers of this whole school of thought were from Vienna, Austria, back in the 19th century. If you want to learn this, you have to learn it on your own or from a private institute like the Mises Institute in Auburn. So I would recommend to your listeners that they go on the Mises website, which is pretty simple to remember. They could write it down if they have a pen and paper. It's www.mises.org. Mises.org. And from there, you can just find all kinds of information. They have hundreds of free, absolutely free books. You can get the greatest economic treatise ever written for free for download in PDF form. So there's really no excuse, in my opinion, for anybody that wants to learn this to say, well, I really can't afford it. It's just a matter of time. And I tell you, most people that study Austrian economics will say it changed my life, and
Absolutely.
I have a completely new outlook on the world in all kinds of ways. So that's my pitch for the Mises Institute.
Absolutely, and that's one of the many things about the Mises Institute that rocks is that you all are very balanced in all the articles that are written. You don't get the impression at all that there is any partisan politics. Well, many of the people who write for the Mises Institute are not, don't even live in the United States, so they don't have a dog in the fight necessarily.
No, in fact, my wife and I are getting ready to go over to England this coming week, and we're going to be visiting with some people there who write occasionally for the Mises Institute, and they're good friends of ours. And so it's kind of important that people understand that economics really knows no political bounds. There's no such thing as, well, I'm an American economist or I'm a Chinese economist. You're just an economist. And economics itself is really only microeconomics. When you're in college, if you take a beginning course, most universities will say, well, they have a semester-long course in microeconomics,
Yes.
which means how individuals make decisions, and then they'll have another semester-long course in what they call macroeconomics, which is we're going to look at the economy as a whole. Well, the Austrians say, well, the macroeconomics is nothing but a construct. It's just nothing but an aggregation of microeconomics. So real economics is at the individual level. It's individual choices of what people want to do, what their desires are. And all economics flows from the individual. It doesn't flow from the nation. It doesn't flow from your home state or even your hometown. It flows from you individually and what you as a individual, a free individual, wish to do to make yourself better. So you find that you take on more of I'd say a cosmopolitan worldview when you become an Austrian economics, and it's easy to start making friends and acquaintances all around the world.
And you just made, an excellent point just now about the concept of economics and about it being universal, which the constructs really are. And that's where the whole when you start arguing about what is good economic principle and what isn't, there really is no magic to it. It's a very technical. It's a science, really.
Yes, it's really based upon logic, and it's based upon irrefutable maxims. And irrefutable meaning you really can't deny these things because they're part of who we are as an individual. So they're based upon irrefutable maxims, which don't want to get into too deeply in this. When I taught this course in Introduction to Austrian Economics at the University of Iowa, my students found the first week or so was usually the most difficult because I said, economics is a logical science. It is not based upon sampling data.
Right.
It's based upon logic and reason alone. And as rational human beings, there are certain things that we can say are irrefutable. And that's what is the basis of all economics. It is not, well, I'm going to go out and sample what people are doing and call that economics. No, that's going out and taking a sample of what people are doing and saying, people are buying Toyotas and people are buying hamburgers and more people are buying cheeseburgers this year than fish sandwiches. Well, that's not economics.
No, it really isn't. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It really isn't. And so, that's one of the things that the show here, Money Talk with Melanie, aims to do is to educate on that level so that people understand things like this, especially when we're talking about our vote. These are, basic economic concepts. When you hear the media trying to feed us certain things about economics, like the example that you just gave, when you hear the media feeding us things, you will know that that's like what Mr. Barron just said, that's not actually economics. That is not what it is. And you're being fed a bunch of buffoonery, basically, basically, and you will know when
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, and I think getting back to my article, I think the main thing that I'd like to get your listeners to understand is that kind of at the base of a lot of is a huge misunderstanding in the mainstream economics that somehow we make economic decisions as a nation, and one nation can harm another nation by taking the wrong economic decision, or an economic decision that benefits it, that must come at the expense of another nation. For example, I'm sorry to say that our new president, President Trump, believes that China is harming us when it intervenes in its own currency markets to drive its currency lower so that it sells more to the United States, or that it subsidizes industries that of products that Americans buy so that it can sell more to the United States. Well, no, that is costing the Chinese people cost. The Chinese people are being taxed because of that. The Chinese people are having their currency debased, and they're going to suffer inflation because of that.
Right.
And those products are really gifts of some kind to the United States. Now, it just is wrong to say that somehow this is destroying American industry. First of all, American industry is not being destroyed. American industry has never been stronger. If you want to get empirical data for this, it's irrefutable, again, that the American industry has never been stronger. But any problems that we do have, I think we do have a lot of problems, are simply of our own making. All we have to do is reduce the red tape and the interventions and the regulations and all the things that prevent our capitalists and our laborers from working to their full potential. Just remove those barriers in our own country and leave the rest of the world alone to do whatever it wishes.
Right.
There's no reason for us to intervene or to jawbone them to say, well, if you reduce your barrier on our products, we'll reduce barriers to yours. Just say, no, we're going to reduce barriers for everybody. Trade with us freely, and you will find out that our policy is the best, but you'll learn that yourself.
Right. It'll happen naturally through to coin a Darwin term, right? Natural selection, so to speak, but on an economic level, and that gets back to actually the first point in your 7 steps toward a sensible foreign policy is you say to adopt unilateral free trade. And step 2, you also say that we shouldn't be lobbying foreign governments to allow one's own citizens' goods into their countries.
I'm sorry, Melanie. You may have to edit that out. I couldn't understand anything for the last minute.
Oh, okay. No, that's
you're coming through. You're coming through very garbled. I can't really understand it.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now?
Still can't.
You still can't? Hang on a second. I'm just gonna. Okay. How about now? Is that better?
I can't understand.
Can you hear me?
Are you still there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
You want to hang up and try to call me again?
Sure, absolutely. I'll give you a call right back. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties, but I'm going to reconnect with Mr. Barron in 1 second. Let me just give him a call right back. For some reason,
this is residents of Pat and Ellen Barron. We're on the
call. Let me try that again.
This is residents of Pat and Ellen Barron.
Oh, that must be.
Call ended.
I wonder if that's on. Must be on his end. Here we go. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Melanie, I still can't.
Hi.
I just can't understand a word you're saying.
Oh, that's okay. Is that better?
No, it's just completely garbled.
Oh,
it's completely garbled.
That's so weird. Okay, let's try this. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me better now?
I still couldn't understand anything you said.
How about right now? Can you hear me now? I switched the speaker. I think it must be his phone. Okay, we're going to go into a commercial break and see if we can get this straightened out. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Hi, my name is Willie Lawson of The Willie Lawson Show here on the Exceptional Conservative Network, Monday through Fridays, 9 a.m. They told me that I needed to be humble, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I decided to be awesome instead. That's The Willie Lawson Show, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. here on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe from the Reaver, Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. That's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
I'm Ken McClinton, chairman of the Exceptional Conservative Network. Never has the cry for economic liberty been more resounding in urban America than on Election Day 2016. Hello? It's the economy!
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi.
All real change begins with the American entrepreneur.
Terrific. I don't know what that was about.
Socialism did not work. Progressivism stole the wealth of individuals and families.
We'll be back in a few minutes.
You voted for something different.
About
real change.
So I just hold on here.
What does real change look
about a minute, 30 seconds.
Like? It looks like Las Vegas, and it sounds like Freedom Fest 10. Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds, is a popular liberty-minded conference at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas from July 19th to the 22nd. Hear the voices of the urban freedom movement: Deneen Borelli, Larry Elder, Gina Lofton, Helen Rowley, Juan Pablo Agrande, and Zayad Abdel-Nour. Share ideas with powerful liberty movement figures like Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Anthony Scaramucci, Jennifer Grossman, Naomi Brockwell, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Peter Schiff, and our keynote speaker this year, William Shatner. Your money, your liberty, your freedom, your city. Come for the real and return with the change. Register now at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all caps code TECN. We'll see you there.
Okay, we are back. I apologize for those technical difficulties. We do have Patrick Barron back. And before we went to that commercial break, I was asking Mr. Barron about the first two steps toward a more sensible foreign policy. And he had touched on it before we ran into those difficulties, which step one was to adopt unilateral free trade. And the second step was not to lobby foreign governments to allow one's own citizens' goods into their countries, which Mr. Barron had touched on right before I asked him that question before we had the technical difficulties. And I was hoping that you would elaborate on those first two steps, Mr. Barron.
Well, sure. To lobby, foreign governments to do something, I think is just a waste of time. And things just really don't happen. They grind to a halt. This is the whole idea that trade has to be managed somehow. But that's just a fallacy. If foreign governments want to sell us their goods and are willing to accept our money for it, that's fine. Our citizens get the benefit of what's called bendable goods. We get real goods. We get Toyotas. We get all kinds of things from Japan and China and the rest of the world. And if they say, well, we're not going to buy your cars, well, I guess that's fine too. You'll find out the error of your ways. So all they're really doing is harming their own citizens by denying their own citizens goods that they normally would buy. If you say, well, perhaps the Chinese wouldn't buy our Fords and Chevys and Chryslers. Well, if that's the case, then why does China have to have a barrier to it? And so obviously, this is all part of what's just called mercantilism. And it was completely discredited in the 19th century, but it was the economics of the world for a long time, which said that we want to export as much as we can in order to get gold into our country, and that made us rich, and we want to prevent our citizens from importing from the rest of the world because they would have to pay out that gold. Well, today we substitute foreign reserves for gold. But the fallacy there is still the same, in that the purpose of all economics is to benefit your own people.
Yes.
It's to allow people, production is there for the benefit of consumption. It's not the other way around. And this stands all of economics on its head. So, just allow our citizens to trade with whoever will trade with them, and just keep our mouths shut about what other countries are doing, and we'll just set a good example, and we will become happy and wealthy, and the rest of the world will see after a while that they have adopted a fallacious policy because their citizens are becoming poorer and their nation is becoming poorer.
Right, certainly. Now you have two principles here as well, steps 3 and 4, that talk about subsidizing, which we love to do here in the United States. We love to quote unquote help out, right?
Right.
Step 3 says to not to prevent one's own citizens from buying so-called subsidized or dumped products. What are you referring to there?
Well, this happens. You see this all the time. I use the example of I think one of the U.S.-Canada softwoods trade wars that apparently the Canadians were subsidizing softwoods. I guess softwoods would be called pines and things that we use in our home building industry here. And our people that were trying to compete with them in the United States said, well, this isn't fair. This isn't fair because the Canadian government is subsidizing the export of softwoods to the United States, and they're driving us out of business. Well, that's benefiting the United States consumer. So it means that our homes cost less, and we became richer because of that. And again, if the softwoods industry in the United States, which of course did not go out of business, and wasn't going out of business, it may sell less, but that was not for anything for them no reason to deny the American consumer, in effect, a good deal that is being paid for foolishly by the taxpayers of Canada. So, the Canadians aren't going to be able to subsidize everything, and that is a poor policy on the part of the Canadians. And we compounded that policy by saying, well, we're going to just put a big tariff on Canadian goods so that they're competing on a level playing field with our American softwoods industry, which apparently, couldn't compete to the extent they wanted to with this subsidized goods. But the subsidy was paid for by the Canadians directly to the American consumer. Now, that's as if someone said, my son is mowing your lawn, and he's charging you $15 every time he does it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to give him $5 of my own, and now you only have to pay him $10 to mow your lawn. And you go, oh, okay. Why would you not want to do that?
Right.
It's no different. Again, this all gets back to microeconomics, but when we put it on an international scale, we seem to think that these common sense policies that we would adopt ourselves somehow fly out the window, and we will adopt the reverse of those.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Before I let you go, we have to close out and go into another segment. Please let people know how they can read the rest of your article, because there are several other steps that we did not get to. And Mr. Patrick Barron has several other articles that he submitted to the Mises Institute that will be very beneficial for you to take a look at. How can they get access to those articles, Mr. Barron?
Well, if you go on the Mises website, which is www.mises.org, Mises.org, and you click on daily articles, which you'll find along the top, it'll say authors. And I think it's alphabetical. You click on the B for Barron, and you'll find me listed in there with others, and then that'll show all the articles that the Mises Institute has printed over the last 10 years or so.
Yes, absolutely.
For me, and I would recommend that's a good place to start.
Absolutely is. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I apologize for the technical difficulties we had earlier, and I certainly hope you will come back.
I will. Thank you, Melanie.
Okay, thanks very much. You too. You take care. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I want to thank Mr. Patrick Barron for being on the show today. And we're going to go into a commercial break. And when we come back, we will talk about 5 minutes of personal finance. It's the debut of that segment, so I'm very excited about it. And we will be back in a few moments.
Come on, Mr. Nunez. Say it ain't so.
Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, Representative Devin Nunez, please step out of the politically correct parallel universe you've gotten stuck in. Your Wempus Americanos apologeticus decision to temporarily step aside as head of the Russian probe pending the outcome of an outlandish, progressive-oriented ethics investigation? Sir, I know you said, quote, is in the best interest of the House Intelligence Committee and the Congress, unquote. But that makes about as much sense as saying that the Chucky Schumers of the world, Nasty Pelosi, and even Governor Snyder of Michigan have good intentions regarding America because those progressive globalists do not. Mr. Nunez, your clear and precise investigation had the crooked progressive Democrats shaking in their crappy boots. Oh, I understand that several left-wing activist groups have filed accusations against you with the Office of Congressional Ethics. It was done to prevent the American people from getting the whole truth about improper unmasking of the identities of U.S. citizens and other abuses of power. Such typical Republican style of rolling over and caving into the whims of deviant progressives is both stupid and dangerous for the Republic. I'm Ron Edwards.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. We're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservative.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. And we are introducing a new segment to the show this morning called 5-Minute Personal Finance. So I just wanted to talk about for a moment the impending. What else was I going to talk about? Tomorrow is April 18th, and it is tax day. I thought I just at the last minute, I thought I'd add that little. I thought I'd add that little sound effect because I thought it was really cool, but it's just so true that's how we feel about tax day when it comes. It's just this foreboding thing that almost happens to us every year. And if you have not filed your taxes yet, there are a few deductions that I wanted to make you aware of that are commonly missed deductions that people miss all the time. So if you have not filed your taxes yet, or if you miss, if I name one of these deductions and it's major dollars, you may want to even amend your tax return. For example, you would think that people would not miss this, but some people do. Your property taxes. Sometimes your second home, a lot of people get their primary homes, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that your second home might even qualify for a property tax deduction. So that's something that you want to look into. Your timeshare might also qualify for a deduction as far as your as far as your property taxes are concerned. So that's something you want to look into with your tax preparer. Another tax deduction that a lot of people tend to miss are medical deductions. You can deduct qualified medical expenses as long as it's not more than 10% of your adjusted gross income. So you can take a look at that. By the way, if you get some kind of physical enhancements, if you know what I mean, that are cosmetic, they're not deductible, just so you know. Any of those enhancements, are not deductible, even if there's two of them. You can't. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. But any kind of cosmetic surgery is not deductible, so you can't include that in your medical deductions. Don't do it; you'll get in trouble. Your student loan interest, you can deduct $2,500 or the amount of interest paid during the school year, whatever's less. You can do that with student loan interest. Your moving expenses, if you change jobs and your new workplace is more than 50 miles away, you can deduct your moving expenses. That's a big one that a lot of people don't catch. So, and moving expenses can be up there. So that's something that you definitely want to look at as a frequently missed deduction. If you moved, if one or two of you, if you're a couple, got a new job and you didn't deduct and you had to move as a result, get those expenses. Remember, you need to have proof for all of this. So that's always the rub. You need to have receipts. Any non-cash charitable distributions are also, contributions are also tax deductible. Now, in order to do that, if you're deducting over $500 in non-cash deductibles, you need to file what's called a Form 8283. A Form 8283 if it's over $500 of non-cash gifts, okay? With the good old IRS, and you can go to irs.gov to get that form. And then finally, if you made a contribution to some various tax advantage accounts, such as your HSA, your health savings account, or your retirement account, some of those are tax deductible as well. So you definitely want to look at that. Now, what do you do if you have not found all your paperwork? You don't know where your W-2s are. You don't have all of your receipts together. And here we sit on April 17th and tax day is tomorrow. Well, you can file an extension. That extension will get you 6 months. It will not absolve you of the responsibility of paying taxes, obviously. So if you owe, you might want to include a little deposit out of good faith. If you think you're going to owe, you can estimate how much you owe and send the IRS a little check. But in order to file an extension, you need a form 4868. The form is 4868, and again, you can get that form on irs.gov. So don't. Someone in the chat room has said panic. in regard to no, what you need to do is not panic. Don't panic, and go ahead and file that form 4868 with the IRS so that you can get a 6-month extension and get yourself together for filing your taxes properly. There really is no penalty for doing so. So you want to get right on that and file your taxes. So that was a quick the very first edition of 5 Minutes of Personal Finance Advice from your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we'll be back on the other side of this commercial.
Chicana Ranch is involved in helping youth through the snags along the pathway to adulthood. The last 8 years have created greater challenges. Having a president to parade perversion to our youth has generated the need for us to ramp up our character learning 100-fold. Today's youth are confused, and our goal is to give them a fresh understanding of creation, moral clarity, respect for authority. In short, restore absolutes and boundaries. Boys are born boys and girls are born girls, God's design. Right is right even when no one else is doing it. The Exceptional Conservative Network is underway to raise $10,000 to help advance this mission. Together, let's reverse the confusion aimed at our youth. Don't be a spectator. Go to our donation portal and make your financial contribution now. Your gift goes toward helping youth get clarity, moral clarity. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone who listened to Money Talk with Melanie this morning. I want to thank consultant and economist Patrick Barron, who is a contributor also to the Mises Institute, for being on the show this morning. I also want to thank the people in the chat for chatting me up and listening. Yes, I'm laughing at someone in the chat at my very comical good friend and fellow radio host Dave Milner, who's the unpleasant blonde guy who's actually not really unpleasant. If you catch him on a podcast of his on my Facebook page, do yourself a favor and listen. Tune into him whenever you see him. Brilliant commentary from Dave Milner, the unpleasant blonde guy. Love him. Anyway, I want to, again, thank everyone for listening to the show today. And I want everyone to remember that this is all important because it is your money. Have a great day. We will see you on Wednesday.